This is Dan and Lexi from Mailhot Outdoors, reminding you, keep the adventures alive.
Hey y'all, I'm Johnny.
And I'm Colleen. And we're the Keel Quest. And we want you to keep the adventures alive. Cheers!
Hey, this is Darren from Ride Paddle Repeat, encouraging you to keep the adventures alive.
This is David from Beachley Ironworks saying keep the adventures alive.
I'm Jay. Let's go. From Jay's Way, keep the adventures alive.
Hi, I'm Kevin Cowan, the Happy Camper. Remember, keep the adventures alive. Awesome!
Woo, buddy! Shoot here! Keep the adventures alive. I am.
We're John and Aaron.
Keep the adventures alive.
Hey everyone, it's Kylan from Lure of the North, and I encourage you to keep the adventures alive.
This is Sky North telling you, keep the adventures alive. And now on with the show.
Tonight's episode of CANOEHOUND'S Outdoor Adventure Show is brought to you by OTG Meals. Fresh, freeze-dried, small batch meals made for people on the go. Algonquin Outfitters, with 4 key locations in and around Algonquin Park to serve your backcountry needs. Badger Paddles, handcrafted canoe paddles made to order. Kid Products, stick stoves and reflector ovens proudly made in Canada. And Novicraft Canoes, connecting you with nature in Canadian-made canoes since 1970. Well, happy Tuesday evening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of CANOEHOUND'S Outdoor Adventure Show, a show that brings you a lot closer to the great outdoors. My name is Dennis, also known as CANOEHOUND, and if this is your first time tuning in to our show here, well, thank you very much for joining. Hopefully you'll stick around, learn a little bit, and you know what, maybe we'll make you a believer and get you to hit that subscribe button, and of course the thumbs up button to get YouTube to notice our algorithm very well. So, you know what? We got a great show lined up for you tonight there. We got a few great guests in the basement, and we are going to be talking a little bit about bear safety in the backcountry and perhaps share a few stories about bear encounters that, you know what, are the things that you do not want when you're in the backcountry. So a lot of the things that we're going to be sharing tonight will be mentioned just to try and keep you a little bit safer, and not only yourself, but anybody that follows you within a campsite, maybe that you might be, you know, using in the backcountry. So, but before we get into that, I do have a few announcements, as I always do, while the chat fills up over there. Welcome to everybody that's already in the chat there tonight. So let's have a great evening. Let's see. Last week we had a fantastic show. We had Mike and Fiona from Badger Paddles on, and we talked kind of everything about paddles, you know, canoe paddles. They make some fantastic paddles. They have I think 6 or 7 great styles. They do a lot for the canoe community, and you know what? They're great people. They are fantastic people, Mike and Fiona. We got to learn a lot about Badger paddles and where the name come from, and a little bit about their history and why they do what they do. Covered everything from sizing paddles, materials, different styles of blades and stuff like that, and what each style of blade does for you as a paddler. So, you know what? By all means, if you happen to miss that episode, go on back and check it out. It's in our past episodes playlist. You'll see that in the description just below here. Should be highlighted actually in blue, and you know what? Go check it out if you haven't already seen it. It's well worth watching. We had a lot of great other guests on the show as well. Some of their ambassadors, Andrea Wilson, Swifty Paddler was on, Preston Sear was on. We even had an appearance and a special announcement with Kevin Callan. So if you want to know what that's all about, by all means, go and check it out. We also had a great swag giveaway, and I just wanted to congratulate the winners from last week. And I'm just going to give you their first names for privacy's sake. We had Shane, Maurice, Tina, Jerry, and Dwayne. They were all winners of some Badger paddle stuff. So by all means, I'm sure Fiona will be reaching out to you and have your packages in the mail as soon as possible. So congratulations to all of you. Next week on CanoeHound's Outdoor Adventure Show, we'll be covering a show on route planning. It'll cover maps, some resources, and how to find crown land in Ontario. You know what? We're in that paddling season now. It's great. I'm watching all these YouTube videos of everybody who's done their ice out trips, and it's really cool to be seeing people back on soft water again. No more snow. The trees are starting to blossom and bloom, so this is a nice time. One of my favorite times of year. Great time to get out. And speaking of which, this guy is hoping to get out this long weekend. Not quite sure where I'm going. I got 3 different destinations in mind, but we'll see what happens. And of course, by going out this weekend, I'm going to get to try something that I've been so anxious to try. I picked up my new Novacraft canoe this past Friday. Last Friday, went up to the Novacraft factory and the London paddle shop, and got to meet all the staff there, got to have a really cool tour of the factory to see how my canoe was made. You know what, their employees there are top notch and second to none, and they take super great pride in all the work that they're doing. And at the end of the day, I knew the canoe I was getting, but I didn't want to see it until the end of the actual tour, because I'd have just stood there and drooled all over the canoe if I seen it before things. So staff wrapped it up for me and did a little bit of a surprise unveil at the end there. And beautiful canoe. And I plan to get that out this weekend and do a little bit of tripping with it. But I do have a video coming down the pipe, so you all can see actually how Novacraft canoes are made. And it's really an impressive procedure to get these tough stuff canoes and their blue steel and their aramid and all that, their canoes put together. So keep it up, Novacraft Canoes. Thank you very much for the tour and everything. Chris, Sarah, and Steve, my 3 main contacts there. Thanks very much for the hospitality you showed to me. Let's see here. This week, just want to thank my Buy Me a Coffee contributors. We had Beauty of the Backcountry and iTime. Thank you very much for the coffee. Let's take a dip. Cheers, everyone. Yes, still coffee too, by the way. And then, of course, as I always do, I love to acknowledge my my channel members. And you know what? Just want to get this out of the way as well. I have been mentioning that we are having for our channel members, are automatically entered into a draw on our very last episode, which is May 30th, the end of this month. That will conclude season 4. And as a thank you to my channel members, well, one of you lucky channel members has a chance to win some really cool prizes. I'm just going to go over the list that I have right now so that give you an idea of what we got. Of course, the Canoe Hound Adventures prize pack, you can get like a baseball cap, coffee mug, a hoodie, t-shirt, and some other various swag. From our friends over at Kid Products, they're giving a stainless steel stick stove and some accessories like a fire steel and a One of those little stretchy pocket bellows. They look like a big metal straw, but they're made for keeping your fire going. We've got some Novacraft canoe swag, some meals from OTG Meals. We've got 50 custom printed decals, some great signs and graphics, a set of maps from latlong.ca. They got some really cool maps that they put out, one of which I'll probably be using this weekend. Algonquin Outfitters, and of course, Salis Marine is actually donating a EddyFlex PFD to the lucky winner. A total value of over $750 is going to be going to one of our lucky channel members. So if anybody's interested in becoming a channel member, how do you do that and what does it get you? Well, if you hit the join button down below there, it'll give you an indication of different packages that we have available. It's a great way to support the channel, to keep the channel going, and to help offset the costs that we incur by doing this. And believe it or not, yeah, it might be just a live stream, but there are a lot of costs that go on to this, like streaming software, equipment, and things like that, right? So any support is greatly appreciated. And if you want to be part of this draw, all you need to do is become a channel member. That would be appreciated. Let's see here. Birthday wishes. We do have some birthday wishes this week. Special wishes go out to good old Joe Robinette. He's celebrating a birthday this week. Subscriber Miles Goche is also celebrating a birthday. Good buddy Jess from Rain Dance Bushcraft. He's a channel I visit after I do my live streams at the green room. Doesn't go too long, but Jess is celebrating a birthday this week. And then Wolf from Barefoot Bushcraft. He's a local bushcrafter who has a popular YouTube channel as well called Barefoot Bushcraft. Go over and check it out. But he's also celebrating a birthday this week, so that's all cool. If anybody ever has a special occasion coming up or something, all they need to do, if they want it announced here on the show, is just shoot it to this email here at canoehound@gmail.com. I'd be more than happy to share the happiness with you and everybody else. So by all means, please do send that over. Now, couple other things. Next week, we're going to have, just at the very beginning of the show, we're going to have a special guest on, which is, her name is Sarah. She is one of the head figures over at Novacraft Canoe, and they're putting together a charitable raffle that's going on. And I'm just going to put on screen here, but she's going to come on and explain it more to us. But keep an eye open for this here. It's called the Ultimate Canoe Tripping raffle. Tickets are already on sale. They'll have more details about it when she's on next week, but you have a chance to win over $6,000 in gear from top paddling brands like Novacraft, Level 6, Gray Owl Paddles, Salis, and all proceeds are going to support waterways. Sarah will be on next week to tell us a little bit more about that and to let you know how you can get tickets for this. You know what? Did you see that canoe, that Novacraft canoe? Wasn't that beautiful? You know what? It helps a great cause, and you stand a great chance to win some really cool swag there. So by all means, tune in next week so that you'll be in tune with that. And if I can, I'll try and get the link up maybe on my Facebook page this week so that everybody can get the link going through, and maybe you might want to pick up tickets for it or whatever. It's up to you. Let's see here. Tonight there, as we go on with our topic on bears, if anybody has any questions, same old. Put the word question in the chat before your question so I can notice it. We might not get to it right away, but we might. Lately, I've been doing like a rapid fire towards the end of the show, trying to get all the questions taken care of. So make sure you put the questions in there. I'll put a star beside it, and then we'll go through it at the end or as we're going through the show if I get the opportunity. So please get your questions through. And then, of course, you know what I mentioned earlier, 3 more episodes. Well, this one and 2 more episodes for this season. But I am planning or trying to get my itinerary kind of laid out for next year's season 5. A few changes will be happening to the show, but you know what? I'd love to have topics and guests that you would love to see on the show. So at any time between now and next season, if you want to drop me an email, it's that same email once again, the CANOEHOUND@gmail.com right there. Drop me an email. Let me know what you'd like to see on the show, topics that you'd like us to cover, because it really helps me to know what you want to see and gives me some more direction towards the shows and that we plan on producing for you. So by all means, please do that. Okay, enough of that there. Let's get on with the show here. This is the time that I'm going to introduce our guests. Tonight's topic will hopefully keep you a little bit safer in the backcountry. With the onslaught of new and seasoned campers hitting the trails, we find ourselves running into more and more bear encounters. Tonight, we'll cover everything you need to know and to stay safe from bear encounters and what to do if you have a bear issue. First, we're going to be joined by this YouTuber. He has several videos on this topic. As a matter of fact, he was on the show here a couple of weeks ago, so he's going to be a very, very familiar face to many of you. And he's done a lot of research on bears, and he's got a lot of really, really, really high-viewed, great bear content on his channel. Please welcome to the live stream, Kevin Ride. Where'd you go, Kevin?
Hey, Dennis, how you doing? I'm good.
You come on the screen and you were totally black there. It looks like you got your bad connection back, huh?
Oh, well, hopefully it's back working.
Yeah.
We're here to talk about bears. I'm excited.
Yeah, let's talk about bears. Next, we got a gentleman that's had a rather scary encounter last year. He's somebody that I paddled with in the past and probably will paddle again with in the future. He had a really scary video out tonight. We're going to check out a little bit of his video on that and hear the story from him firsthand as to what happened to him last summer while he was up around French River. Please welcome to the live stream from Daniel Mailhot Outdoors. We got Daniel. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, hi everybody.
And lastly, we have a former Algonquin Provincial Park ranger. He'll correct me if I'm wrong in saying how that is. I think he said he was a warden. And he's currently a wilderness instruction. And this guy, I met him at one of the winter camping symposiums recently. Very vast knowledge of the outdoors. And you know what? If he dealt with Algonquin Park, I'm sure he's got a vast knowledge of black bears as well. So please welcome to the live stream. We have Peter Desmond. Peter, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Awesome. So we got everybody loud and clear? Yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. All right. So let's get right into this. I'm going to start by asking this question. Why are bear encounters becoming more frequent? Why does it seem like we're seeing more of these things? Peter, that's probably something you could answer.
Well, more and more people are enjoying the backcountry. I can speak to Algonquin. I've seen the numbers go up quite significantly. And with that comes more and more people cooking in the backcountry and using the campfire to prep their meals. And not everybody is either educated or careful enough to keep their campground, their campsite clean, or know exactly what to do with rest and leftover food. So if that is not properly disposed of or dealt with, you can easily get bears that come into campsites and get habituated. So
can you what does habituated mean? Let everybody know what this means, because not everybody in the chat might like, not everybody are probably seasoned veterans being in the backcountry. There might be some, for lack of a different term, newbies, right? What is it that habituates, and what is habituating a bear? What is a habituated bear?
Well, habituated is they become unbothered by human presence. So they kind of lost their fear for humans as they get into food. So they will come back to a place, to a campsite or to a location where they found food before. And usually bears have two things in mind. They either try to get food all season long, or they try to reproduce and rear their youngs too. But a habituated bear is a bear that lost its fear of human encounters and is actively seeking out an area because it's found food before. So they lost their fear of humans, and they associate humans with food sometimes too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's becoming more and more prevalent right now in the backcountry, especially in the provincial parks, right? Where so many people are going, right? Yeah. What can you say to that, Kevin?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The more you reward a bear, they're intelligent creatures, right? They know their stuff. They've got a wicked nose, and they know how to find food. And when they get a reward, they'll come back to it. I live in the country, and we're pretty careful with our stuff. But our chicken feed got left out. It was in a metal can, but we had a bear figure out where we kept our chicken feed, and he popped it over one night and dragged it all the way into the forest. And we can never do that again, because it'll just come right back. It'll happen again. They'll keep testing that spot. They'll keep looking for an option that helps them out.
Yeah. You know what? You say they're highly intelligent animals. I remember as a kid, we used to do school trips, and we'd go to Marineland in Niagara Falls. And at Marineland in Niagara Falls, they had a black bear pen. And this black bear pen, the way you fed this thing was it had this can on a clothesline. And you would put feed in there, and this bear would just sit there all day and operate this thing, bring the food down to him, take the food out, pull it back, make it go back up. You throw your corn or whatever, popcorn, whatever junk food you had into the thing, and he would pull it back and forth. So, obviously he's the bear that he's trained to know how to do that, obviously. But just the fact that they know how to do that is pretty amazing, right? And yeah, that's kind of crazy. So what's the likelihood of an encounter happening? Where would it be more frequent? Is it more frequent maybe within a provincial park over another backcountry, like a crown land site or something like that? Anybody?
Well, I actually have a slide you could put up if you wanted to.
Sure.
I've been doing some research on fatal bear attacks, and I've been looking at some data, and it's amazing how you could be doing almost anything, including being at home, and be attacked by a bear. So this is the number of humans killed by bears, both black bears and brown bears in North America since 1991. And the second most common thing you could be doing when being attacked by a bear is being at home. So
wow.
You could be doing anything. Yeah.
So at home, in your own backyard type of thing, or?
Yeah, obviously a rural area, but
yeah.
They're not going to attack you in downtown Toronto, but hiking is number 1, at home is number 2, working is number 3, hunting is number 4. So yeah, you can encounter a bear in the backcountry. You can encounter a bear in your front yard. Any of those bears may run away as soon as they see you or hear you, or they may choose to do something else with you.
Yeah, that's why I like bringing Kevin on the show. He always takes the time to put together these really cool facts, and yeah, look, I didn't realize. Wow, there's that many. 90 in total since 1991 people, but that's cared. I wonder how many people have been mauled in that same time frame.
Yeah, this is killed. It's not attacked. I've looked for attack data, but it's really hard to find because it's reported to different authorities in different ways. And in Canada, it might be provincial police or local police or the park, or in the States, it could be all kinds of different places as well. So it would take some real effort to track down that kind of data. But this data is pretty readily available. Unfortunately, the fatality data.
Yeah, that's crazy. So let's get into looking for signs around camp, things that might be indicators that you might be coming to a place, or maybe not even an indicator left by human, but what types of things are signals that there could be a bear in the area. Daniel, I'll let you take this one, because I know you have a lot of human factor stuff that you identified during your incident there.
Yeah, well, typically I find that from my experience, and I haven't had a lot of experience with these kinds of encounters, but you've got the markings, obviously the footprints, but that only presents itself if the conditions are right, the mud, the snow, whatever it may be. But typically, in my experience, it's been ripped up garbage. If you see that, that's usually a sign that something's up. And bear scat obviously is one of the key ones. You can find that in pretty much all seasons. There's probably a few others. I know that they do some tree markings sometimes, but I'm not schooled in that, so I'll leave that to somebody with more experience.
Sure, maybe Peter could add to that, having been associated with Algonquin Park.
Yeah, I've only seen it once, but we were coming out after a 4-day trip, and we were going to be picked up. I was still working there, and we were going to camp on the side of a logging road, and my boss would come and pick us up. And at night, in the evening, we set up camp there, and in the evening we kind of walked around. And about 100 yards from where we were was a big spruce tree that was clawed up, and you could actually see the black bear fur hanging in the resin on that tree. So it's a territorial marker. I found 2 in all my time that I spent in the backcountry in Algonquin. One was on a portage, and one was on a logging road. Being territorial markers, so you probably are dealing with big adult male bears in there. So that's something to be watching for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like bear scat is not always I guess a great indicator of a bear that's like sticking around the area. That could be just a bear cutting through, right? So
yeah, unless it's concentrated on one particular site where you found several, like call them dumps, that would be, I would think that would be a concern. But otherwise, it could be just one on a trail or a campsite on the back or something like that. I've also seen. I was on patrol once, and it was a long weekend, so we did day patrols, and then we stayed at the parking lot. And there was a young family with a young kid there, a child, and I didn't notice at the time, but they, of course, they were collecting their diapers, and I was thinking that they would understand that they would keep their diapers safe, and because it's an attractant, of course. On my way out on Monday, we were coming back, and I was on bikes. Coming back, and we walked on these campsites to clean up after a long weekend. There's always lots to do. And the Thunderbox was way up the hill. And I always walked up to the Thunderbox to go check it, see if we got to dig another one or not. And that Thunderbox, as I look up the hill, the Thunderbox was pushed off site, and there was all these packages around. And what happened was the bear got into the Thunderbox because it smelled all these diapers, and people didn't know any better, put the diapers down the hole. And these diapers were just spread everywhere. They were ripped apart. They were everywhere. And that's apparently, I did some reading up after. That's apparently a big attractive for a black bear, or any bear for that matter.
wow, yeah. So anybody taking kids out to the backcountry, make sure you pack that stuff out, right? I think that's probably perhaps one of the biggest things is making sure, anything that goes in with you should be coming out, whether it's full or it's empty, right? It's bad enough that when you go in and you have that stuff full, that a bear can get it while you're there, but to leave stuff just laying around is definitely a big faux pas when it comes to the backcountry stuff. How camp tidiness, like trying to keep your camp clean,
I think that's
Kevin,
the biggest
Kevin, I believe you had like a video on that on things to do when you're in the backcountry, how to keep your site clean so that you're not attracting animals. And it might not even only be bears, it could be rodents, like your chipmunks and your squirrels, which are they become habituated to people as well. And before you know it, they're rifling through your food and stuff like that too, right? Mind you, not as big a threat as a bear.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the number one piece of advice is to keep a clean campsite. Well, carry bear spray, and number two, keep a clean campsite. That's the most important thing. Bears have an amazing sense of smell. I'll see if I can put up a slide here that I have. I was thinking of something else, and I'll try something else here. Share screen.
Sure. We spoke of that a couple of weeks ago when we had our food show on, the one that you're on, Kevin, and we were talking about how people, if they have food left over, food scraps and stuff like that, they always think they're just going to throw it in the fire pit, and we got a great campfire going, and we're going to incinerate the food, right? Not thinking that even burnt food has an odor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think when you're cooking, you have to cook food, right? You're out, you're going to cook something. It's better if it's not as smelly, and it's better if you cook it quickly and get rid of the odors. Whenever you have that stove going with bacon in your pan or whatever, you're setting up a scent plume that some bear could pick up on and find your campsite. But If your site is less interesting, the bear is less likely to investigate, right? So minimize that time that you're making sense. Clean up right away. Clean your pots and pans. Dry them, and if you're fishing, keep your fish guts way away from camp. Like clean your fish, a kilometer or more away from your camp. I know the feds in the province differ on their recommendation.
Whoops, we lost him a little bit. One food that I always think is a scary food to cook in the backcountry, and you see a lot of YouTubers doing is they bring popcorn out there now. Well, you go to a movie theater, they attract people in with the smell of popcorn. Right? I'm sure animals are not going to be much different than that there. So Kevin, we kind of lost you there. You broke up a little bit there when you were talking about cleaning fish about quite a distance from your camp.
Sure, yeah. I'll try and pick up then from that spot. Yeah, clean your fish far away from camp. The federal authorities and the provincial authorities differ a little bit on what they recommend. I know Ontario Parks recommends leaving your fish out on a rock so the birds can get it, but I recommend what the feds do, which is put it in the middle of the lake and let it sink to the bottom, and much less smells for the bear to pick up on.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. You got a graphic up there. We'll share that now.
Yeah, this is one I used in one of my videos. Humans have a really terrible nose. So if you think popcorn is something that can lure you into a spot, we have a very terrible nose. Our bloodhounds smell much, much better than us. And I think we recognize that when we see dogs in movies or on TV, sniffing out drugs or finding lost people or something. Brown bears and black bears have way more scent receptors in their nose by millions. Black bears are in the order of 2 billion scent receptors in their nose compared to humans, which are, we got like 200,000 or something like that. We don't even compare. We're not even on the same scale. So, when human kids play hide and seek, we hide. and when we go looking for someone, we open our eyes and we search. But a dog or a bear is going to lift its nose to the air and investigate if it's looking for someone. So they just have a completely different sense than we do. And sometimes I think we have a hard time understanding how they rely on a different sense entirely differently than we do.
Yeah. It's funny because I remember seeing a fact one time. They were saying that dogs can actually taste what they smell. Right. And I can't understand why my dog always wants to go into the bathroom with me. So, bad girl. But no, that's pretty it's one of those things where us as humans, like you say, our scent receptors might be, inferior to what these animals are. But you know what? It's like if you can taste what you smell, you know what I mean? Steak cooking or that popcorn, because since you can taste it, you could just imagine that the power of what they are. It's like they could probably smell it more than we can taste it, type of thing. So
yeah, absolutely.
Wow, and that's kind of funny because when you see the stuff that the way people store their food when they're in the backcountry. Everybody seems to think, these big blue barrels are bear proof, or they call them bear barrels, when in fact they're not. They're just a plastic container for transporting your food or other goods, right? They are the farthest thing from being bear proof. How true is that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I often use them. I often use a small olive barrel like this. I think I showed it on the last show. I put a couple of U-bolts in here, and my son wants to join me. And I use this, but I don't rely on it to stop the bears. I'll hang this in a tree, and that'll work pretty good. It'll keep the bears away from it, but it cuts down on some of the smells. And then you've bear. I've got a picture there of the earth sack and a bear vault, and those work much better to keep bears away from your food. And what's best is whatever metal box the authorities leave for you to use. So this is one in Puckasaw National Park by Parks Canada, and this is one in Jasper that is very effective. Like that's 100% effective. everything is less effective than a metal box.
Yeah, I got my Amazon package out of a box that looked like that today. Only kidding. Funny to see stuff like that in the backcountry, For anybody that's
Yeah,
not
they fly that in with a helicopter, I think. You walk 2 days. This was in the Tonkin Valley in Jasper. You walk a couple of days into the backcountry, and there's this metal locker, but it keeps people safe.
Yeah, for sure. For anybody that's not familiar with an Ursack, this is an Ursack. They come in black and white, and they're like almost like a Kevlar cloth that is supposed to be bear proof. They can like rip at this, but they won't actually take it away or get it away from. You're supposed to tie it to a tree, but as effective as they say these are, they're supposed to be maybe aided with one of these things here, which is like an odor-free giant Ziploc bag, and although they tout them to be odor-free, I actually wonder how odor-free these actually are when it comes to, a black bear or any other animal trying to sniff or sniffing what it is. Now, you did some tests on this, didn't you, Kevin?
I did. My wife's trying to get my son out of the room here.
That's okay.
Like I said, I live in a rural area. There's lots of black bears around. So I did a few tests with Ziploc bags, the OP sack, and the Coughlin's bag, and I put an open sardine can up in a little wooden box that I nailed to a tree, and put trail cameras on it, and the bears came to it and were a bit curious but didn't investigate. So I'll say mixed results. They certainly noticed there was something there. They noticed it when there was food there but no food. And they came back to it repeatedly. I thought my hypothesis was they were going to scratch at that. They were going to smell it, and they would sense a real strong reward, and they were going to destroy that box. And that was what I thought was going to happen. But they moved on, even with a Ziploc bag. So I don't know how to score this. I may use my dogs and cats in a future YouTube video to see see how good these things are to a dog or a cat. But anyway, I'm working on that one.
Cool. Now, Dan, I know last year when you had your incident, I'll let you share because I know you were using an Ursack, and I'll let you tell the story because it's kind of funny in the respect of what they took and what they didn't take.
Yeah, it was a very strange situation. I no longer have an Ursack. Just a pro tip on Ursacks: make sure you tie them according to instructions. I got lazy and I tied it to a small tree, smaller than I should have. And the bear took the tree and the Ursack with it, just completely uprooted the tree. And so I no longer have it. But it, I have a bear barrel as well. And I have a kind of a dry bag that I keep all my cook stuff in. And that was really not that far away from where the Ursack was. And those two things were completely untouched. My bear barrel wasn't even knocked over. It didn't look like the bear sniffed at it or anything. Yeah, I'm assuming, I use a lot of Ziplocs and stuff like that, plus the bear barrel. So I assume that, some of the smell or a good chunk of it was blocked. And I did a good job cleaning my cookware after the meal. So I didn't have, they could have easily ripped that bag open to have a look at the cookware, even though there was no real food in there, but they didn't even touch it. It wasn't even knocked over. So I found that kind of strange in a way. Yeah.
So you've got a video clip here from that's on your YouTube channel, and I'd like to share it with everybody if we could. Maybe you could set up the scenario here of what led up to this incident.
You want the long version or the short one?
Well, let's share, because you had indicators at another campsite, but I'll let you tell the story.
Yeah, so we went out to French River down by where our goal was to head out to the Bustard Islands, down by the mouth of French as it opens into Georgian Bay. And we had our sights set on camping on an island called Doiron. And it was, supposed to be a nice campsite. We got there and we found a bunch of garbage, and I didn't film a lot, but there was a bunch of garbage, all stuff that looked like it had been bitten through, and then there was some markers on the ground. Somebody took a stick and wrote bear, and as well as on a rock. I guess they picked up a piece of charcoal or something from the fire pit and wrote on a rock, big bear. So we got there, we saw some scat as well, and we said, maybe this isn't our site. We should probably move on. And took us quite a while to get to the crappy site that we got to. It was a terrible site for us, but we were so tired and so hungry. We had been paddling for quite a while that we just decided to settle. And as campers, we both my buddy and I both hammock camp. So this site, out there aren't that many trees. There's some, but there's not as many as, the Temagami forests or whatever. And so we settled, we made some mistakes. We were so tired, we made some mistakes, and we settled on a crappy site. We set up our hammocks basically in the campsite itself, and we ate there, like right there, right next to our hammocks. And anyways, went to bed and, did all our chores. We were reasonable, put our food away, cleaned everything up. And I got woken up. in the night. Maybe that's a good place to start that video.
Yeah. Is the video queued to the spot?
Should be, I think.
All right. Well, let's add her to the stream.
So I just got woken up. That's where my head was.
Well,
I'm shaking.
I don't know if that showed Dennis or not.
Yeah, let's maybe if you bring it back to the beginning there, we'll bring it back to the beginning portion of that there. And so hammock or Daniel, like myself, is a hammock camper, and that's kind of where he was sleeping when this happened. Let's try this one more time.
So I just got woken up. That's where my head was. I'm shaking.
It's still glitchy.
It's not going to agree with us. Well, I guess everybody's going to have to go back and maybe watch the video on your channel there.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and verbally describe it then, what happened.
Yeah, it was about 2 a.m. Got woken up. I heard sounds. I thought it was my buddy getting up to take a whiz or something. And slowly I started to realize that it didn't sound like him all of a sudden. Next thing I knew, right beside my hammock, I was in it, and I could hear one of my canoe packs being ripped open, probably 5 feet away, 6 feet away from me. And then I knew what was going on. And I made a mistake. I froze. I completely froze. I said, don't move, and maybe it'll just move on. And it didn't. It went into my pack. I didn't have anything in there that was like food or scents, except for one tiny little tube of Gorilla Glue that I keep in my repair kit. And the bear, eventually chewed into that, but it took a swipe at my hammock while I was in it and ripped a hole in my hammock. And then I just lost it. It was a fight or flight, and flight wasn't not an option. I was a bit of a burrito. So I just started yelling as loud as I could, and the bear ran, like it took off. But I shouldn't have waited that long. I really should have. As soon as I heard the sounds, I should have started making noise right away. I think that was always a question that I had in the past. What happens if you wake up and a bear is right by your tent? What do you do? And I never really got an answer, in the research that I did as to what you're really supposed to do. And I don't think anybody really knows what the right answer is for that.
Yeah.
But that video was, after a few minutes of calming, I didn't seem calm there, but I was a lot more upset after the swipe.
I've queued it up here on my side screen here, and I really like to play it. I like the people to get a scope of this to see how unnerving it could actually be. So we're here, and I'm gonna hit share, and let's get her going here. That's scary. Your head was right there.
Yeah.
That's where my head was. I'm shaking. Move it! Move it, bear! Go on! Go home! Move it! Myself so bad right now.
Wow.
Move it!
Yeah.
No.
I think that kind of conveys the scope of it. Even though you weren't harmed, how scary it was. You're a big man, and you were shaking in your boots. And when I spoke to you, I think the day or two after, when you were done your trip, you were still quite shaken. Yeah.
Yeah, it messed me up a bit. The rest of the trip was not that much fun. I was just in a kind of a weird mind space. And, the whole time, I guess I started processing, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? Going through all of the whole scenario of what happened, and what I could have done better. And, I've certainly changed my mind a lot on a lot of things. I'd gotten, after years of going to the backcountry and not having any close encounters, I'll say. I've seen lots of bears in the distance, but I just never had a close encounter. I want to say, I didn't get, I wasn't stupid in my practices, but I was a little complacent. Nah, there's no bears back here. It's not a big deal. I clean up a bit. I'm okay, and I think, at the end of the day, it's the more comfortable you get, I think the worse it gets. You should really just be, on point all the time when it comes to bear safety. And I feel that probably one of the biggest mistakes that we made is that we ate dinner, and we camped right next to where we cooked. And that night I was so tired that I went to bed in the clothes that I ate in. So I had, and it was fragrant. I forget what it was that we ate, but it was something very fragrant. And I feel that's probably what attracted the bear to where I was. So, that's a change that I definitely would make.
Is it one of those deals where you feel like, you've been camping for so long, doing backcountry tripping and stuff like that, and you become complacent, right? You don't pay, like I'm like that. I'll be the first to admit it. I go into the backcountry, and I don't take all the precautions that I probably should in the backcountry when it comes to, I sleep in the clothes that I've worn all day and cooked in and fished in, and you catch a fish and you kind of do that after you're done with the deal. You brush your teeth. You forget to put your toothbrush in your bag that you're going to be hanging if you're a hanger, and you go, I'll just put it in this little cinch sack underneath my hammock. So you become complacent out there. You don't carry bear spray. I think a lot of that has a lot to do with enticing animals to maybe be more curious with what's going around your site. Peter, I'm sure you've probably seen a lot of that in your time in Algonquin Park, how complacent people become, or thinking that bear is like, oh wow, look at the bear, man, let's go get a picture with it, right?
Yeah. So I just circle back to what Kevin said. Their sense of smell is beyond anything we can comprehend. I used to be a hunting guide with upland dogs, and we used to hunt with Labradors. And my boss back at the day said that in comparison with humans, and this is just Labradors, so a bloodhound is at the top spectrum of the dogs. And just with a Labrador, he said the comparison is like we have like a postage stamp in respect to our scent receptors. They have an A4 paper. If you look at that for a bloodhound, that's even bigger. They're at the highest level. So you take down black bears, grizzly bears, and polar bears, they're way, way above that even. So scent control in your campsite or in general for that is really, really important. Because I think if you entice a bear to come to a campsite, that's basically the first step of creating an habituated bear. And sometimes maybe you've done everything right in regards to scent control on your campsite, but a bear is used to finding food or is associating that campsite with humans and then food rewards, that it doesn't matter. You might have done everything right. You might tear up a pack or tear out a barrel or tear out your tent for that matter. A lot of campsites that we used to patrol and step on campsites when people were not on their campsite. And I would just check the campsite, check with the fire hose, check the Thunderbox. And often I got picture after picture where all their food is just basically sitting out. There's nothing put away. There's like boxes with eggs, food in plastic bags and Ziploc bags on camp benches, in chairs, and they're out for the day, like they're paddling or they're fishing or something like that. In the meantime, that's all on their campsite.
Yeah, so it's important to, even while you're inhabiting the campsite, to do your cooking, have your food out, use it, put the remaining stuff back into storage. Try to minimize it, right?
Yeah, once a bear gets like a food reward on a campsite, he or she might stick around for a while and associate people on that campsite and walk in while you're cooking or while you're setting up or in at night. There's plenty of videos on YouTube where people have been camping on campsites and they've been warned that the bear's in the area and they are getting a visit at night. There's one video in particular, two videos in particular, where a couple gets onto a site with a little child, and they get visited by big black bear right off the bat. As soon as they are landing on that campsite, within minutes, big black bear shows up, and they decide to stay there anyway. They hang their barrel up, and sure enough, at night the bear gets in the barrel. So you just contributed to the problem now. I think that's my personal opinion. You should, like Daniel said, vacate that site and go to another site. Unfortunately, that didn't even work out for Daniel, but often that's the case. If bears get attracted to campsites, because they found food there once, or they got a food reward there once, and then it's very hard. I was on patrol once, and we came across a campsite on Hambone Lake, and the fire was burning like 2.5 feet high. It was about 10 in the morning, and so there was a tent there, there was a coffee mug there, and I announced my presence, and nobody answered. So we kind of established that the campsite was empty. So I took out my water bag, doused the fire, and continued on with my patrol. And in the evening, I came back to that same campsite, and there was an elderly couple there. And I was proceeding to go lay a charge. You can't just in the middle of the summertime have your campfire burning on an empty campsite. So I was going to have a conversation, see what's going on, and then pursue action. And as I am explaining my findings and what I thought of that, the lady starts to cry. And so I take her apart, and then she informs me that for the last 2 nights, she hasn't slept at all. because there's a bear continuously pressing them for food, and they had one of those big blue coolers. And the bear, like, you can't hang a cooler for one. I've seen it happen, but it doesn't work. And bears can get in there. That's not an issue. So the bear was continuously pressing for food, and the gentleman was a self-proclaimed bear hunter, and he was used to bears, and he dealt with bears, and so he didn't want to move. In the meantime, his wife didn't sleep, was up all night, stressed to the max. And in the meantime, we created now, or what was probably already a problem bear, but now they kept on pressing, so that bear got more brazen and more brazen, because the bear knows the food's there. It's just got to push hard enough probably to get it. So we end up cleaning that campsite out and having to close Hambone Lake for 10 days in a row.
Yeah. Well, being a park warden like that, when people come out of the backcountry like that in a provincial park, if they notify staff that they've had an issue with a problematic bear, what steps are taken by the park? What do they do? Do they do anything to close the campsite, or what happens?
There's an interview on to establish what exactly happened and what the outcome of the encounter was and what contributing factors were. And then sometimes it goes as far as, we have to close the campsite for a while, or close a section of the lake for a while. That's been done before. Absolutely. That's been done before.
Okay, so like it doesn't fall on deaf ears, because I've actually been to Algonquin Park, and I've seen notices in the permit building saying, bears have been spotted, or bears have been frequented at particular campsites, I guess trying to ward people off from going to them particular spots, right? But you just kind of mentioned that the park will go in there. Will they like sort of tape off?
Sometimes they close the campsite. So on the campsite, there'll be I used to ride on the back of a portage sign that the campsite is closed. When we closed off Hambone, it was on the two portages, pedal to the portage towards McNettawan, and pedal to portage to Bice. I just rode on the portage sign there on the lake where you enter the lake. That all campsites on Hambone are closed. Or we used to put a notice on campsites, and people in the staff in the office would also talk about people that would travel through that area or go camping that area, that there's bears. There have been issues with bears, or bears have been sighted on a frequent basis in that area.
Sure. Okay. Let's get into really quickly a bit of the food hang it or not hang it debate, because there's everybody has a varying opinion or things that they do around their camp when it comes to storing their food in the evening. Who's a food hanger out of the four of us? Who hangs their food?
I do both.
You do both? Okay. I guess given the circumstances or at the given time, right?
Yeah.
I for the most part don't. Some of the guys I do camp with do. So if they're willing to hang it, I have no problem with hanging food. But for the most part, I'm one of them guys that likes to. Well, if I'm using an sack, I will. I'll tie it away from the campsite. Usually far back from the shore too, because I always find that it's my belief that bears will have a tendency to prowl the shoreline too, looking for food. You always see it in, if you see a bear, where you usually see them, either swimming or prowling the shoreline, right? So I'm one of them guys who will sort of store my food away from camp, and if I store it in a food barrel, I'd like to put the pots and pans on it, so it's an alarm, so I can run the other direction if I hear it. What's your take on it, Kevin?
I do a mixture. It depends on where I am. So I'm in the north. I have never canoed in Algonquin Park, and perhaps never will, because Quetico is an hour away from me right now, and Wabakimi is 3 or 4 hours away. So those are the kinds of places easier for me to get to, right? And in the front country in Quetico, I will almost always hang my bag. By front country, I mean that first day's travel. There was a comment before that the put-in lakes are where all the problems are. Well, I don't know if it's put-in lakes or the cluster of lakes around the put-in lakes, but those easy to get to places are where sloppier campers are going to go. Less experienced people are going to go there. They're going to tend to make more of a mess, leave more garbage, create that habituated situation that Peter's talking about. And it doesn't matter how good a camper you are. You if you're on one of those sites, you could be visited by a bear, and they got a wicked nose. So if they're on the site, they're going to smell everything about you. I believe the barrels and stuff cut down on the smell, but I believe if they're close enough, they'll pick up on it and know what to do. So in those situations, I hang my food. It's not an easy thing to hang food. Like, I've gotten good at it, but it's not easy. So I understand when people say they can't do it. I've seen so many bear piñatas that, you know, they're just asking for trouble. So, and I've done those before. When I started camping, you'd push the bag up and you'd get it, 5.5 feet off the ground. Well, that's not enough for a bear. But when I'm in the backcountry, real backcountry, I never hang my food and I never have a problem. And I know lots of people that do as well. So, but that's only, I want to be clear, that's only when I'm really deep in the backcountry do I just rely on a barrel.
Yeah. I always think that if the food is on the ground in a barrel and the bear is hanging around, let the bear take it, even though, it could add to the animal habituation, right? But I'd rather the threat took the food and got away than hanging around trying to play with that piñata. Peter, what are some of your recommendations?
So there's a big distinction between provincial parks or national parks that have established campsites, and as we were talking about, it's campsites that are close to put-ins, like close to entry lakes and stuff like that, where people don't necessarily do a lot of portages. And then you can go way up north where you either make your own campsite. I think those are two big distinctions. I camped in northern Sweden and Norway with European brown bears in the area, and we never had an issue, but we also didn't really stay a lot on established campsites. So I think the same thing goes northern Ontario or any northern regions in Canada, where you could be putting all your food and all your cooking equipment in one of those big blue 60-liter barrels and be absolutely fine. You do that in the park. There's a video, I think it's the east side of the park there, where somebody got their food stolen, even though they hung their barrel up high, and they got the bear chewed the rope. Barrel hit the ground and tore the barrel to shreds and got to the food. They went out, they went to the wardens or the office, and they mentioned that. And then somebody went in. They found 6 or 8 barrels or something up the hill that the bear had scored and dragged up that hill apart. So if you go down that route, like established campsite, there's a reason why in the U.S. in national parks and that they use bear barrels, or these, I think Kevin or Daniel put a picture there where they have these big metal containers where your food goes in, regardless of your opinion, it goes in there. End of the story. So what I've been doing, in all my time in Algonquin in uniform, I've only seen one good bear hang, one. And I had a conversation with a gentleman because I was curious too, because I never really was an expert in bear hangs. I never did bear hangs. I used barrels, and then recently I used these specific bear canisters. He was a tree surgeon, and he could throw that little baggie. They have a little baggie with sand or a couple pebbles in or something like that, and a really narrow, thin rope. And he could throw that little baggie in with pinpoint accuracy, and then make a system up the trees where he had his bag. They had dry bags with their food, and it was pretty impossible. I think you can't say impossible, but pretty unlikely that if you do scent control really well in that bag, that would be taken down. On the other end, I've seen pictures of a bear, one of those Canadian Tire yellow ropes, where with a bird feeder on between 2 trees, where a bear is literally cliff hanging his way over to that feeder. So I never really. I have pictures. It was on short notice, or I could pull them up, but I have pictures of these blue barrels totally tore to shreds. So they don't really do anything. And when I started guiding, I changed into the Garcia machine bear canisters. So this is what I use these days. I don't bother with hanging. It's cumbersome. It doesn't always work. The trees are not always suitable for that. And if you have a 60-liter barrel that is full of food for 3 or 4 people for a couple of days, try to hang that up into a tree decently. You know, you're like, that's pretty. I saw a video of Parks Ontario where there's 2 students trying to push this 60-liter barrel up, and it's basically they go like this and it's up there. Well, I don't know, maybe there's not a lot of food in there, but if you go with 2 or 3 guys for 4 or 5 days or 3 days, there's a serious amount of food in there. So I changed to these canisters a while back. I got 6 of them. And when I guide people, all our food and all our cosmetic stuff, toothpaste, is all in there. And there's a difference between the Garcia machine and the Bear Volts. I got Bear Volts too, but I like these better. They have these 2 little screws here, and I usually take a piece of duct tape where I put a loonie or something on, so I always have the ability to open that up. At night, I take that out so the bear doesn't have anything to grab onto. And at night, I put that barrel away from camp, at least 60, 70 meters away from camp, in a dip so that controls the scent a little bit. And when I put them on the ground like this, it would also control the scent like that, so the top is not open. That's what I do these days, and I've never had an issue. Also, it's very practical. You come onto campsite a little bit late, or you were windbound and you have to make a certain campsite, or it took a little bit longer. Whatever happens, you come on site, or you have dinner before you come on site. You don't have to find 2 trees. You don't have to do that entire setup with throw baggies and pull your stuff up into a tree. Sometimes it's already getting dark. It's just a cumbersome affair. With these barrels, all your food's in a barrel. Also, you don't put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. So I send the group out that way. I send the group out that way, even with flashlights if it's dusk or already dark. And we put them out in 2 different positions on well-established locations where, let's say, there's a tree that is down, or there's a big hollow in front of a rock or something like that. I always find a little bit of dip in the ground, and that's where I put 3 of them down. And then another group goes another direction, put 3 of them down. And either you can mark your way back. I think Canadian Tire has one of these in the hunting section, these reflective
You got great. I never heard of this system. This is great.
So you got these reflective clips that you can just tie on a branch, so you can find your way back to where you put your food dump, basically. So that's what I do.
Peter, where do you get those containers from?
I used to order them at Mech, but now they changed to the Bear Vaults. So okay. I think you can still order them online somewhere, probably. But I know that some certain parks in the States, this is a mandatory thing for hikers. I know this could be cumbersome. I've put that in my Berg house here a couple of times for a couple of day hikes or extended hikes where all our food is in one container. I know it's cumbersome, and one of those earth sacks is probably a little bit more practical. It also folds down when your food is out of there. But I don't have too much trust in an earth sack. I'd rather have something like this. They can play with it all they want. They can grab, they can chew it. They're not going to get in it. They can't pick it up and walk away. I know of a story of a guy that used to work for a company up at the South River end, who tied his blue barrel with all the food and the sat phone to the tree. Bear got it, never saw the sat phone nor the barrel nor the food ever again. So they can't pick this up. They can bite in it and walk away with it. So if you're doing long trips where you're, let's say, 5 days from exiting and all your food is gone, you're in a bit of a predicament, you know? So that's, I think, for me, what works the best. I do 2 dumps in low-lying area. I have 6 of these barrels. All our food and cosmetics are in there. Bug dope, toothpaste, deodorant, everything that smell is in there. Make 2 dumps, and I've never had an issue. Even if they find it, they can play with it and they can knock it around a little bit, but they can never pick it up and walk away.
Be a good idea to put an Apple tracker in there too, maybe, right? So you can find where he's actually dropping. You mentioned Peter mentioned Peter mentioned the acrobatic bear across, and I often show this picture on the show, so I'm going to share this. Sorry, this is the best I can get for quality. But here's a black bear with this is like a clothesline with a bird feeder on it, and if you go through, you can see this bear. Look, he's actually getting at this thing. You know, this just goes to show how cunning these things actually are. Is, you know,
if there's food involved, they're on it.
Yeah. So that's interesting. This is on a page there. There's bear and bird feeder combo. So feel free to look that up and get a look at that, right? But that's kind of crazy. You know what? We're going to take a quick commercial break here so that we can get rid of a coffee or get a new drink in us, and we'll return just to cover a bunch more things because we do have a lot more to cover. I want to talk to Daniel a little bit more about his encounter there and what he would have done differently and things like that. So bear with us here in a few moments, and we will return. Right there.
There's nothing like being out there. For over 50 years, we've been connecting people with nature by building classic Canadian canoe designs using the best materials available. We built a reputation on durable, dependable canoes that allow you to focus on what's important, whether that's unplugging in remote wilderness, spending quality time with your favorite people, or nailing the perfect line. Visit novacraft.com to find the perfect canoe for you and locate your nearest authorized dealer.
Tonight's episode of Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show is brought to you by OTG Meals, fresh, freeze-dried, small batch meals made for people on the go. Algonquin Outfitters, with 4 key locations in and around Algonquin Park to serve your backcountry needs. Badger Paddles, handcrafted canoe paddles made to order. Kid Products, stick stoves and reflector ovens proudly made in Canada. And Novacraft Canoes, connecting you with nature in Canadian-made canoes since 1970. And welcome back to the second half of the show. You know what? We only call this section overtime tonight just because, you know what, there's still a lot to cover on this topic. So with that being said, let's bring our guests back up here. We've got, Kevin's still getting a new drink, so we'll bring Daniel and Peter back on. We'll bring Kevin back up on panel once he returns. But so Daniel, what would you have done different in this whole scenario? I know you were tired. You said you may have cut a few corners that night. What would you have done different to maybe help prevent your incident?
You know, I think that probably the big thing was the clothes. That's the thing that I keep, you know, thinking back to is that I was probably wearing part of the odor from dinner. And it wasn't, you know, we were tired. It was late and we ate and went to bed right away. Didn't even have time to kind of air out a bit, I guess. So I think that's probably the biggest takeaway. The other one is, you know, when we planned the trip, I think we probably should have done a little bit more research as to, you know, what the situation was there, because this particular bear, and I'm not 100% sure. I have no idea really, but I'm going to say that's probably the same bear that was on that island. I don't know why I think that, but I have a feeling that this is a bear that just goes along that coast back and forth, maybe swims out to a couple of islands. And so there was a known issue, you know, after when we got back to land, you know, we spoke to the people, and I actually reported it to the park rangers and everything, and it was a known issue. They knew that they had a situation out there. The fellows that, you know, that camp that we stumbled across, those guys got so scared they just left everything. Apparently they left everything, including their tents, everything. They paddled out and went right back and got in the car and left. So, you know, they left a lot of junk behind, which adds to the problem, of course. But for us, I think it was just a question of we should have been more picky on our sites. We should have been set up a little bit better, a little bit earlier. And the sense thing on me, I think, was the main problem.
Were there any signs or indicators at that campsite that you actually camped at? Because there were at the other one that you said, no, let's get the hell out of here. Were there any signs or any signals?
No, but it was a terrible site. You know, it's that site you pull up to and you go, oh no, I'm not staying here.
Right, right.
I would suspect that it's not a very popular site, that not a lot of people would want to stay there. We just gave up and settled.
Yeah.
So we didn't see any evidence at that particular site. No.
Well, just want to let everybody in the chat know I just posted there. If anybody has any questions, to pop them up on screen now. Feel free to post your questions. I do have a few starred that we'll get to in a few moments. But if anybody out there has had a scary encounter or something that they really feel they could add to this whole conversation on bear safety, you know what? Love to have you on screen here for a few moments to share with everybody. Don't be shy. It's very simple to get set up here, and love to have you on screen. So we can get maybe one or two people looking at the time that we have here. With that being said, we've covered quite a bit, but let's try to expel a few myths here. There's a lot of different myths. Like this is one that goes back to women. I don't know if any of you gentlemen can answer this, but a lot of people seem to think that women that are on their menstrual cycle seems to be an attractant for bears. Is this a truth or is this a myth? Can anybody answer that one?
As far as I can tell, it's a myth. They've even done some research with used tampons in bears and zoos, and it seems to be a complete myth. Polar bears, that same paper that I read, polar bears showed some interest. I also, in some of those numbers I've been playing around with, and it's not clear because it's really hard because there's more men outdoors, especially hunting and stuff. But in terms of fatalities, women are way fewer than men, and it's all ages. It's not just women in the fertile part of their life. It's young kids and older ladies, and there really doesn't seem to be a selection for women of the right age.
Okay. What about having a pet in your camp? You know, having your dog. I travel usually with my dog Molly. Is that problematic, or could that be a bear deterrent?
Could be both.
Okay. Both? Explain.
Could be both. Depends on what kind of dog you have. There are dog breeds out there like a Karelian bear dog or a Leica or something like that, or a big game hunting dogs that could actually tree a bear if they're courageous enough, and usually they have that in their blood. But it also be if you don't really have control over your dog, if your dog doesn't sit when you want it to sit or doesn't stop when you want it to stop, and it chases a bear. Some dogs are so courageous that they will actually chase the bear off, but other dogs, if the bear turns and the dogs come running back, and then all of a sudden you got a pissed off bear in your camp looking towards you because your dog's going to pass you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my dog's very obedient, so my dog's also a coward, right? So I don't think she'd ever go chasing after a bear. But yeah, every dog has its own personality, right? So when they're in the backcountry, you know, are they the chasers? Are they the hunters? Are they the ones that'll tree? Yeah. So I guess that could be two sides to that coin, right? Yeah.
Yeah. There was a video of Jim Baird where he was camping with his wife. I think it was somewhere in Quebec or something like that, where their dog Buck chased off a bear that came onto the beach where they were at, you know. But it was a big husky style dog, so he chased it off the beach.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Go chase. The bear turns and faces the dog. The dog cowers, comes back running, and then brings the bear back to you.
Right. Because I always wondered if, maybe having the dog in the campsite with you, maybe that scent of your dog would make the bear, if they're not familiar with it, right? If they're not familiar with that scent of an animal, because I'm sure they smell moose, they smell whatever other wildlife if you're sort of like Crown Land and you're in the middle of nowhere. But if they smell something like a dog like that, that maybe they're going to, especially a dog that may have been to the groomers recently and, had that nice little rose petal bath or something, right? That
the other thing, Dennis, is that dogs add numbers, right? So what Peter says is absolutely accurate. But if you're in a camp with more people and dogs are part of that, and you have more than one dog, the more the better. Nuisance bears tend to kind of ignore crowds a little bit, but still, if you have enough people, it's easier to scare away a bear. Predatory bears, again, so here's the kills, the human fatalities. The fatalities drop off drastically once you get to 3 or 4 people. So again, if you're a couple and you got 2 dogs, that's 4, right? So that really helps. The fatality for black and brown bears is 0% when you have 4 or more people. I've heard stories of brown bears attacking a group of people, like 6 or 7, but once that group disperses, the bear decides to do something else. You're most dangerous if you're by yourself. So there's a distinction here between the predatory behavior and the nuisance bears, but having a dog in camp is going to add to your numbers, and it's going to help you be safer.
There you go. There again, some great stats to, I guess the proof is kind of in the pudding when you look at that, right? Mylar, is food sealed in Mylar? Is that odor resistant? Kevin, you're the foodie.
Yeah, I've been playing around with this, and like I said, I'm going to do some experiments with my pets next time. But I think anything you can put your food in helps. I think when you seal it up in any kind of plastic, it helps, and it keeps those bears at a distance from finding you. Mm-hmm. If they're in your campsite, I think they're going to find that food barrel or bag, even if you triple Ziploc it and seal it tight. But anything you can do to minimize scents will help, but it's going to be that bear that's 5 kilometers away that you're not going to attract, which is a good thing. Right. You'll never even know if you were successful. If a bear's in your camp and it's not going to be in your camp and not find your food, right? You're not going to see a bear and say, "Hey, I'm glad I triple bagged my food," because it's going to be on your food no matter what you do.
Sure thing. We do have somebody that has popped into the basement, so Don will be with you in a short moment here. Just wanted to talk really quickly about some of the bear deterrents, right? Bear spray, bells, whistles. How effective are these things? Let's go from sort of the weakest maybe to what would be considered maybe the strongest. Let's start with whistles. Is a whistle going to scare off a bear?
I think it all depends on what kind of bear you're dealing with. Like, if that bear has had food rewarded, then it's going to be hard to permanently deter that,
Yeah. Okay. What about bells? I guess that might help bears keep away if you're wearing bells on your shoes or pack or whatever, walking through the bush on a portage.
A lot of the research says that those little bells don't do anything. That bears can't distinguish that little rattling sound from bird sound. So it's a good idea to make noise and announce your presence and be loud. I had one person ask me recently about what if I wear a cowbell? And I thought, oh, that might work because it's a louder, clunkier sound. But I haven't tried it. I don't know. But that's what you want to do. You want to be making noise, especially if you're hiking. Not so worried about canoe tripping, but if you're hiking, a lot of attacks happen when a bear is surprised. So the wind's in the wrong direction. You're walking quietly. You come up over a blind hill or around a corner, and there's a bear minding his own business. But now you're in his face and he's surprised, and a lot of bears will do a defensive attack when they get surprised. And if it's the wrong bear, it could really hurt you or even kill you.
Sure. How about this one here? The Quiet Woods Stadium air horns. That might throw a startle into them. Oh, by the way, the bear bells, I've heard them referred to as dinner bells too, right?
Yeah.
So, just for reference.
Yeah, I've started carrying. Sorry, Dennis. I've started carrying one of those little, the little air horn thing that I bought at dollar store, and it just blows a few blasts. You know, I think that's probably a good thing to create distance, I guess.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
And then
Dennis,
of course, sorry.
I used to work in forestry, and we'd carry the air horns. I was looking for it because I thought I had it close to my desk here. Air horns and bear bangers. We would carry those regularly. They work, but usually not forever, right? The bear will get used to it. And as Peter said, if that bear's after food, it will quickly learn to ignore that noise. So the louder something is, you got to have a really high decibel. The bear bangers sound like a shotgun, as far as I can tell. I don't know how much quieter they are than a shotgun. Air horns are very, very loud. And those usually work right off the bat. But if that bear is curious, it could come back. So it gives you some time and space, but it's not going to work every time.
Also, I think the danger with these bear bangers is you shoot that towards the bear, it goes past the bear, explodes behind the bear, and the bear can maybe run towards you. Or that thing explodes behind it, and now I don't think that's very helpful in that situation. You know.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to fire them carefully for sure.
Yeah. What about bear spray? Now, bear spray is one. It's hard to get a hold of, right? Like you can't just order it off Amazon or anything like that. 2, it's fairly expensive. 3, it has an expiry date. Yet, is it one of the more effective things that you can actually utilize?
I personally think it's the best option you got.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about using bear spray, because it might not be all that it's cracked up to be as far as the way you use it. You certainly don't want to be spraying it with the wind coming to your face, right?
No, that's one thing you got to be very attentive to. The other thing, but that goes to all your equipment, whether from your fire lighting up to your bear spray. Like you got to understand what it is designed for and how to use it properly. So the same thing with bear spray, but there's these inert bear spray cans, so you can actually discharge it's just a spray. It's not laced with any of that stuff in there. So to actually discharge a bear spray, see what it does, see how you operate it with wind, see how you would be able to position yourself, see how you get it out of a holster and deploy it, how your stance would be, where you're aiming. I think that is, if you carry bear spray, that is probably your best option to get one of these inert cans and just practice discharging a bear spray. I remember working for the minister, we did a bear safety course through the MNR. And they had these 3D archery targets up there, and everybody I'd get one of those inert bear spray cans, and we just practiced discharging a bear spray at a 3D archery target. And so that gives you a good understanding about the range, the durability of that cone that you push out there, what effect wind has on that cone. So that's a very, I really like that hands-on training there. That was really, really good.
Okay.
Yeah,
also,
absolutely right.
A lot of people you can't have firearms on you in national and provincial parks and stuff. But a lot of people think, I just bring a gun. But if you have any experience with guns, the moment you're in a stressful situation, you get a massive dump in adrenaline. For you to be accurately discharging a firearm, to do everything right and to put that bullet in a kill spot, I think if you discharge a cone of bear spray, as soon as that bear hits that cone, that's going to be way more effective than you trying to defend yourself with a firearm. And also a lot of issues arose with fatal bear attacks where people misunderstood a bluff charge for an actual attack, and they discharged a firearm, wounding a bear, and then really pissing it off, where it ended up in a fatal bear attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a bear
That's good
spray,
advice.
yeah, bear spray, I think it's your best option in the backcountry. I even carry bear spray in the winter. I keep it warm. But if you're out in the winter time and you bump into a moose on trails, like there's lots of videos out there where people are snowmobiling on these trails in the wintertime. Moose are on some trails too, and then they start pushing the moose to get off the trail because the moose doesn't want to go back into deep snow and stuff like that. People actually being attacked by trying to push a moose off a trail. The moose turns around and attacks the person on the snowmobile. Again, pull a bear spray. You got to keep them warm in the wintertime. You pull a bear spray out of your pocket right then and there. You put that cone on his in that direction, and they walk into it or they catch it. Pretty effective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Has anybody ever had a burn from pepper spray or a bear spray?
I have.
Yeah.
I witnessed it once, and I was on the tail end of one. I was teaching a lady a year ago on how just general wilderness skills and being outdoors. And one of the things I recommend to my customers is actually carry bear spray because it's so effective. And it's a gross motor skill. You just clip that safety off and you press down, so you don't have to have any fine motor skills in a high stressful situation. It's very simple. And so I have a wind checker. So I checked the wind a couple times where we were and decided on the best spot. And so discharged the bear spray in 2-second intervals. So you see the cone, and the cone went into the wind and flew into the bush, and took a couple pictures and sprayed again. So the can was empty, and we did a little bit of debrief and answered a couple questions. And at least 5 minutes had passed by. And it was an open spot in surrounded by bush. And my house was there, and the barn was on the side there. And that spray, that cone, I could see that cone leaving in front of us, and then the wind took it up and took it out into the bush. So we're talking about for 5 minutes, and if you discharge a bear spray can, there's always residue on that nozzle. So I kept that out of reach for a while. So I was going to leave that at the end of my barn there on the side there. And as I'm walking towards my barn, which is about at that distance, about 30-35 meters away, I caught the tail end of it, of something that came around, that spun around. There was no color in the air, but let me tell you, I can only imagine if you walk into a full blast, a full cone, what that does. Like I only caught the tail end of it. Like that stuff is pretty powerful, and the benefit of that is it's a big cone that comes out of there. So your chances are pretty decent for that bear or that any animal for that matter to catch it. Like it stops full size charging grizzlies dead in their tracks, and they turn around and they're off, But then again, there's a story out there somewhere, I believe, where a person deployed the bear spray and it was not as effective as it should be. So I personally believe that's the best defense mechanism out there. If you ever find yourself in a position where you have to use it, I think that's way better than anything out there.
I believe, Kevin, a couple of years ago we did another special here on bears, and you said something that was really cool about if you have an expired can of bear spray, to use it to practice with, right?
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea. You got to be careful. I work in forestry, and 1 year we found ourselves with 20 expired cans that our crews were using. So I took them home to discharge them, because you can't just throw them out. You should discharge them. And how they work. When I first had a negative bear encounter with a bear in my camp, someone handed me a can of bear spray, and this was 20 years ago when they had some even smaller ones. And I had an axe and I had a can of spray, and when the bear's right in front of you, that's when you realize, geez, I don't know what this thing's going to do. Like, I just don't know. And so that's not a time to learn and experiment. It's much better to use those inert cans or use some expired ones and find a safe place and discharge them and get a feel for how powerful they are, how far they go. When I was discharging those 20 cans, most of them went fine, but a little gust of wind caught some of the propellant, caught me on the side of the face. My whole face, the side of my face was swollen. And so I learned about it. It doesn't hurt you. It'll go away in about an hour. But I realized then that, if I was being attacked by a bear, I would hope somebody would come and spray me and the bear and just get the bear off me, and I'll deal with the pepper spray later.
Right. Yeah. And I guess pepper spray is no good to anybody unless you're carrying it.
Yeah.
Like, if you have it and you leave it in your bag or on your backpack, and it's not on your hip, it's as useless as you might as well not even have it, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking with, here's my dog. Everyone's joining me tonight.
That's okay.
So we're talking to canoe trippers, and so you have to have it on you if it's going to be good. So on your belt or whatever. But if you're doing portages, go away. If you're doing portages, you're going to be more likely to leave it behind. So I put a carabiner on it. That way I can always put it on one pack to another. Maybe not as important if you're backpacking. I'll secure it to my backpack. But if you're canoe tripping, making multiple trips, it's nice to have a quick release option.
Sure. Perfect. Well, you know what? We've had somebody sitting in the basement here waiting for a few minutes. Let's bring him on panel. It's Don. Don, how you doing tonight?
Hello. Can you hear me?
We got you loud and clear. Thanks for your patience waiting down there. What have you got? A story, comment, question?
Well, it goes back a long ways. Algonquin Park, 88 maybe. How many years is that? Anyone? 20, 35? 35 years, yeah. So my son was only about 10 when we had a bear problem on Joe Lake, just past Canoe. What is it? Canoe Lake, where you pick up, where you get in, access point?
Yeah.
I think so. So we're on Joe Lake with a party of 6, and in comes a canoe with 2 kids, maybe 12 and 10. They're crying. A bear is in our campsite, and our friends are trying to fight it off. So 4 of us got in a canoe. We kept the kids with us, and 4 got in canoes and headed over there. And the people had one of those Coleman blue coolers, which is like, when the Rangers see that, they should say, no, go home.
Yeah.
You don't belong in the backwoods with a blue Coleman cooler, because bears know how to get in there better than you do. So instead of taking away their beer and pop, the Rangers accepted that they would pour it all into 2 coolers. And they went into the park with a cooler full of beer and a cooler full of pop. And then the bear came after them, and they didn't want to give it up. They fought him for it. So we ended up with everyone. And of course, an hour later, we had the bear too. And we had all our stuff up a tree, and the bear tried to climb the tree and tried swooping out, trying to get the rope. We should have been further from the base of the tree. But he actually ran through the campsite a few times too. It was pretty bad. And of course, the people were drunk, and that didn't help us out either. We had to control them and keep a bear away. Quite an adventure. The Rangers had to go in, and they said they were going to shoot it. They have too many bears at the time.
Well,
so we were
does
sad.
Algonquin Park, do they relocate bears, or that's not their thing to do?
Different
that, right?
times.
They will?
Different eras, depending on the numbers and the degree of habituation.
Yeah. So Peter, you said they will relocate bears?
I've been out for a while, but I know of a story where that happened. Yeah, but that same bear made it back too. So
I've heard that. If they're relocated, that in some instances, it's like that dog that gets lost down in Florida and finds his way back home to Ontario, right?
So they tag the year, and then they do relocate. I don't know how it's done today, or if it's still done today. I also know that usually people's ignorance is the death sentence of a bear usually. So that's kind of a sad outcome, I think, personally, because we're in their home basically. So I think we should step up our game a little bit. But they do. I know of a story where a bear was relocated, but then they eventually made it back to the same area. Yeah? And sometimes there's no other option than to take the bear out, which is very, very sad, because at 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10, it's habituation, which is the cause for human ignorance, basically, from human ignorance, and people that are not necessarily educated sometimes on how to properly store food or cook food or waste management and scent management on campsites. So,
yeah. Wow. So how did that end? How did that finish off, Don? How did it end?
It was the last trip my dad ever took with us, so that was unfortunate. And he's a retired police officer. I think he was even retired then. So, in spite of being a police officer and used to a certain degree of suspense and danger, I suppose, he couldn't take that.
Yeah. Now
that I think of it, my son never went back either.
Yeah, leave your Coleman coolers at home, people. Unless it's a little bag cooler and you're keeping your meat cold for the first night's dinner or something. But yeah, typically leave it at home. And I got to look into these bear vaults that Peter showed there. Something like that looks like it'd be pretty effective.
I know of a story where a camper started talking to us. They had a cooler, of course, and they were on a campsite, and while they were walking their canoe and a pack across, the bear got in the other side into their cooler and just took whatever he had to take and walked off with it. So I guess there's stories now where bears actually recognize blue barrels and blue coolers and stuff like that, and they understand, they're clued in that there's food to be found in those,
Yeah. Food source, right? Yeah. Don, thanks very much for popping on screen here to share the story with us. It's good to know.
Thank you.
Leave the coolers at home, people.
I really wish we would install bear-proof containers at most front country sites. Just to make it easier, because people will always bring coolers unless you have someone checking them, right? And if you had a metal box, you could throw everything in. You'll just reduce that habituation.
Yeah, because eventually the bear will be on the downside of that outcome if it happens. Usually, like if it really becomes a big problem, then usually the bear is not going to be the one left standing, and that's really sad, I think, in my personal opinion, because it is avoidable. It's absolutely avoidable. We have the technology. We do.
Sure. Let's take a couple of questions from the chat here. We got about 20 minutes left in the show, but I'd like to get a few things. We'll start from one that I got just marked here just recently. Nancy W is asking, do bears know the scent of suntan lotion?
I don't know if they know what suntan lotion is, but they're smart. They like interesting smells. They're you go for a drive with your dog and you have the window down. The dog's going to put his nose outside the window because he finds that interesting. That's a wicked stimulation. So if a bear is used to smelling berries and trees and pine and whatever, and all of a sudden it smells suntan lotion, it's likely going to go check that out.
Okay. I would think that, just because they're curious animals too, if it's a new smell to them, it's something that's going to kind of attract them, right? Let's see here.
It's like me in the food court.
Like you in the food court. Yeah. Which one smells best, right? I think we kind of covered this one. Does canoe camping with your dog deter or attract bears or other wild animals? Kind of covered that one a little bit. Let's see here. Got Marissa asking, does bear spray have a smell, or should you keep it in your tent at night? That's interesting.
Good one.
I have no idea because I've never owned bear spray.
Yeah, I would say it doesn't have a smell. Of course, my nose isn't as good as a bear's, but you certainly don't want to spray it on your tent. I've heard those myths of people doing that. It's to be used as a defensive weapon, and I keep it. I don't know what the best is. I'm always afraid that it could discharge inside the tent. So I keep it just outside my tent in my vestibule, right where the zipper is, so I can get my hand out and get it. I will always keep an axe there as well. if I'm canoe camping, or a paddle. Some of the earliest reading I did about bears were people who survived bear attacks because they had a paddle and they fended the bear off. So have weapons, whatever you got, a paddle, an axe, bear spray, and I keep that all in the vestibule, easy to reach.
That's a good point. During that encounter that I had, one of the things I did not have was any kind of, I want to say weapon, but I did not have any kind of, I didn't have an axe. I didn't even have a big knife or anything. And I felt extremely vulnerable. I don't know. I know it's just a mental thing. I don't know how effective it can actually be, but I found that, why didn't I bring my knife? Why didn't I bring my axe? I would have something, in my hand that would calm me down a bit, I guess.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the whole complacency thing back in the backcountry, because I remember my early days of canoe tripping in the backcountry. The little sounds used to sort of, get the hair standing up on your back. You would always go to sleep with one eye open and have that axe or your camp or your bushcraft knife beside you, or something, just to like you say, that little sense of security, right? But over the years, the the knife is gone. The little sounds put me to sleep now, right? So yeah. I've grown quite complacent in the backcountry, which is probably not a good thing, because you should always have your dander up slightly, always have an ear open to the wind to see what's going on. But yeah, if I had bear spray, I think I would keep it in the tent with me, because it's no good if it's not on you, right?
I got a question about bear spray, actually.
Sure.
I've heard that if you deploy it, if you have to use it and you deploy it, that immediately afterwards you need to pack up and go, because it's a smell, and the bear might come back a little bit later to taste some pepper. Does anybody know?
As far as I know, that as soon as you deploy it, that stuff is on the nozzle and also on the area you just sprayed it.
Mm-hmm. Is it reusable? Yeah. Like, if you don't deploy the whole can, can you still reuse it? Like, cap it and use it next time? Yeah.
Yeah, but I would for sure wash the nozzle off, because if you accidentally touch that nozzle and then wipe your eye or whatever, that might be a bad day for you.
or go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
I can tell you poison ivy stories.
One of the things that I learned is today bear spray cans will have a little elastic attached to that loop with the safety on there, so that safety can never be separate from your bear spray. So the first instance that I ever witnessed was somebody lost the safety cap of that bear spray. So then it's armed in the holster, and that could potentially be a bad day. And also always carry your bear spray in a holster facing back. That's what I do anyway. That's my personal advice, for whatever that's worth. The gentleman had the safety cap, lost the safety cap, because today there is these little elastics or zip ties on there, something like that. And he accidentally discharged it using his elbow on the holster and sprayed in front and walked right into the cloud. So another thing I do, like the holsters that they come in, I'm not really a big fan of those. I have a different holster. It's a Tasmanian Tiger ammunition pouch. I like that better. At night, I do keep my bear spray close to me, but I make sure that the nozzle is completely protected. So if there's ever a malfunction, that bear spray is not going to discharge in your tent completely. So when we got dropped off on several occasions deep in the backcountry for replacement of thunder boxes and work with on portages and stuff like that, and we flew in, it's mandatory if you take an airplane, a bush plane or something like that, that these go in a separate container. Like there's a specific can for bear spray cans, and they usually go into the float of a floatplane too.
Okay,
This is
yeah,
one of
'cause
those.
Yeah, one of those.
Oh, container like that. Okay.
It's a plastic
even if-
container.
Yeah,
with
even
foam.
if you have that in your tent at night, or you put it in a plastic bag or a dry bag. I sleep with this close to me, with a little pen knife close to me, and with my headlight on my neck all the time, every time I sleep in the backcountry. So if ever I have an issue, I can cut my way out of the tent. I can put a light on, and I have a bear spray right at hand. That's worst case scenario, of course. And I know that after a while, the more you get habituated to the backcountry, and the more you have nice sleeps out there, you set that, Dennis, the less you start paying attention to these little details. But I think if you have to get out of your tent, at least you have a light and a defensive option in a worst case scenario.
Sure, makes sense.
Dennis,
never
these
thought
are
of that.
important.
Sorry.
These are important not just on a plane, but in your car. Like if you're traveling and this rolls around the back seat and somebody kicks it and the thing comes off. You don't want to be moving in a car with a bunch of people and have this discharge. So this protects you from that. And I store my holster, and it's got this loop here. I store my holster right on it so that it's never separated. I don't get to the field and go, oh, where's my holster? It's right there on it. So I find that pretty useful.
Mm-hmm. Well, another question here from Untamed Ontario. How long does it take to unhabituate a bear? Is that possible?
It takes a split second, unfortunately.
Right?
That's how it's done, right?
Yeah,
that's what Peter was talking about.
Yeah, I think the question is, how long does it take to unhabituate a bear? So what Kevin said.
Yeah, what I was getting at was they're often destroyed, right? The bear's often destroyed.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a sad part of that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know that it is possible.
Yeah, once they have that, it'll probably they're like I said, they're intelligent animals. They'll always have that in the back of their mind, especially the blue color, right? I'm sure.
So
at least in the provincial parks, when you get to remote areas where you're not seeing people and they're not seeing people often, they're probably not as nuisance, right? And they're not as they'll see the blue barrel but not even think twice about it because they don't know there's food in it until they get into it, right?
One of the things that's been done in recent years is dehabituate with dogs. So Karelian bear dogs are a prime example of that, where MNR, I don't know in Canada if they do that, but in the States, they try to associate a bear coming into town or something like that with bad experiences. So they would capture the bear in one of these bear traps, and then they would call in a team of those Karelian bear dogs and handlers, and they would release the bear and then send these dogs after them. So the bear starts to associate coming into town or coming into a certain area looking for food with bad experiences now, where they send these dogs after them. And these dogs are big game hunting dogs, but they've been trained to just discourage bears now. So they send these dogs after them and trying to get that bear to associate that area with a bad experience. So that is one way to unhabituate a bear, but I don't know. I haven't seen. Probably somebody out west with the MNR or something like that, or any game law enforcement or game forces or something like that do that. But I'm not personally aware of that. I do know that that's been done in the States several times.
Yeah. I've also seen game officials in mostly U.S. national parks use bear spray on bears that are, I think if they're not too far gone in terms of their habituation, you might have some luck. But I hear lots of stories about bears returning after that.
Yeah, creatures of habit, right? Yeah. Cattell is asking, could you sink a bag or barrel in the water? Would that hide the scent? Be pretty difficult to probably sink something like that.
I would rather try and hang it in a tree.
Yeah,
a tree is hard enough. Mastering that, having an anchor and sinking your food. I can't say it wouldn't work, but that'd be kind of tough to do.
Be challenging getting the air out of that bag or barrel, because otherwise it's just going to float there. So you got to have a serious counterweight to overcome that buoyancy there if you don't get all the air out.
I honestly think bears can smell underwater too. Like I've seen several animals be able to, you throw your fish remains after cleaning a fish into the water, and before you know it, you've got birds there. Turtles are under the water anyway, so they're probably picking up the scent through the water. But animals, I'm sure, have that sensory odor is going to come up through the water and permeate. I don't know. I think. I don't think it would work very well.
I think if the odor is contained, you might be lucky. But I seen a documentary on forensics and stuff like that, and they had a bloodhound at the front of their boat as a cadaver dog going over a lake in a slow pace, and the dog was sniffing the water for any particles that come up from a decomposing body, and they could actually pick that up. But again, if you put all your food in a bag and you manage to sink it, that might contain the scent. I don't know. It'd be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
D. Thomas there is suggesting a weather balloon. That
those get shot down.
Yeah. That's the ultimate tree hang if I ever heard it.
Yeah, Brian's saying, I've always done food and garbage on Ziploc for my hang up in trees. With Ursac, I'm going to do food in the OPSAC, which I showed earlier. Will garbage be fine in Ziploc, or will I need to use an OPSAC and then wash it? I would, if these things are all that they're cracked up to be, if they really are indeed odor proof, you know what? I would use that over a Ziploc. Ziplocs are generally thin plastic. These are actually they're quite hefty. They're quite thick in nature, so I can see them being more odor resistant. But I still don't trust that they're 100% odor resistant. But they keep my food a little more organized than my Ursac when I use the Ursac. So
I think I can't remember the exact details, but I think Mort Koranski wrote about bears and bear protective and scent control in one of his books. And I got the book here, but it'll take me too long to look it up. But there's a certain plastic that is very scent controlling. But I can't exactly remember. It's in one of his books, and I got his books up here, but I can't remember exactly. But he talks about poly something. It's a plastic, it's thick plastic that if you can get that to seal properly, that would contain all scent. But there's only one way to find that out for real, of course. But I think it's in one of Mort Koranski's books.
That's to let this guy over here test it out, right? Because he likes testing stuff.
Kevin?
Yeah.
What was that?
We'll send Kevin a package.
Sure. Tim over at Super Good Camping is asking, can you burn smells away in your campfire? We kind of touched on that a little bit, but what are your thoughts on it, guys?
There's a way to do that, but I'm not gonna talk about that because I don't want to deal with the backslash of everybody thinking that's a bad idea. But I've done that, and there's a way to do that, and it's not with throwing all your scraps on top of a fire, because then you send out a massive scent cone in the air of food that's burning.
Mm-hmm. That's what I've always said. That is, burnt food has an odor, right? And if it's not an odor that's natural to the bush, there again, it could be an attractant, right? Now, I have in the past, like, if I had containers or the tin foil and stuff like that, I burnt that there to try and burn off as much scent as possible before packing it out and bringing it out as trash. You always go to campsites and you always find old tin cans and stuff like that. And there, take those things out if you can. Be the good Samaritan. Try and clean up a campsite, leave it in better shape. But you know what? If you happen to be one of the people that bring in the can of Spam or the pork and beans or something, you can burn it off. You could wash it off. You can wash it out. And then burn it just to try and get rid of scent, but crush it and pack it out with you. Don't leave it in the fire pit. What do you think about burn? Well, Peter already said that he doesn't want to share what he knows, but Kevin, do you have anything on that?
I would agree. I'm no saint. I have burnt stuff in a campfire before, but yeah, it's gonna make a smell, and you might not get a complete burn. So if I was gonna do that, I want to make sure I get a good complete burn. But while it's burning, it's gonna make an interesting scent, and it's gonna go a long way. So you know, the last show I was on was about food, and that's another one of my backcountry things, and that's one reason I try and bring the right amount of food to a dinner, right? Like if you have leftovers, you're gonna have a problem. So try and get good at that. That's a skill.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, somebody had in the chat earlier, and I can't find it here because I thought I started, but I didn't. But it's stuck in my head. Every one of us, or I hope every one of us, when you're in the backcountry, you brush your teeth a couple times a day. What do you do with the toothpaste in your mouth? Where do you spit that stuff? I generally brush my teeth after dinner, and I spit it into the fire pit because that's my thoughts that it's going to burn up in the fire pit, right? And I could see that burning up. But what do you guys do?
Fire pit's good, or dig a small cat hole and spit in that. We're going to leave a scent. And that's a good example, right? We have dirty clothes. We get our hands dirty. We cook. We're going to make some scent. So I would suggest people not stress too much about getting it to zero, but just keeping it clean and keeping it really low and be less interesting for a bear.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. 2 more quick questions, and then we'll finish off the show with something. Stick around for this last question I have, everybody, because this is the one that could actually save your life if you run into a situation. But question: when a bear is around you and it's making clucking noises with its jaws, is that a sign of aggression, or is the bear nervous? Good question.
A bit of both.
Yeah.
Generally, when they're making some noise, they're nervous and they're trying to scare you off. When a bear is predatory, it's quiet and it's trying to sneak up on you and get behind you. So Dan's experience was scary as hell, and I've had a similar experience. And but this is no comfort, I'm sure, Dan, but that bear was probably not going to hurt you, right? Unless you wanted to fight it for the food. The dangerous bear, the predatory bear, is the one that is quiet and is trying to stalk you and waiting for you to trip. And it's probably not running. It's walking very slowly. As I said before, I work in forestry, and I know lots of folks I now know 3 or 4 people, more than that actually, who've had predatory encounters. One person was attacked, and her life was saved by her partner. And though in all those cases, the bears were quiet.
There you go. Stay away from them predatory bears, right? I remember watching, it wasn't too long ago, it was a video clip of a couple guys like way, way, way north, like, northern scavenger kind of trip north. And the guys are walking along and they're playing some game, like I Spy type of thing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they're walking
Yeah.
along. Have you ever seen that one? And
yeah,
in the camera, the one guy turns around and looks, and they got a bear like 30 paces behind him. He was stalking him, and this bear would not leave him alone. And there were no rocks to pick up because, like tundra, they were on flat rock, barren land, and they couldn't even, they didn't have nothing to throw at this thing. So it was a really scary encounter, and they had no idea it was there until the one guy just happened to kind of turned and looked over his shoulder, and here's this bear like almost on their behinds, right? So kind of scary stuff. So when something like that happens, and this will probably be like the final question of the evening, when you have a bear encounter like this, what do you do? What do you do? How do you get rid of that bear? How do you scare him away? Who wants to take this one? Because I want to learn from this.
Sure. The classic, right, is like make yourself big, make noise. Everyone I know that's had a truly predatory bear, that didn't matter. The bear kept coming. Mm-hmm. So two of those guys, 2 of my friends, ended up going in a lake. So they got away from the bear by going into a lake, and they both spent a lot of time in a cold lake waiting for the bear to go away. One person that I know used bear spray effectively, got away, pursued him, but the bear spray gave him enough time to get back. And the woman that I know, she was attacked, and she was medevaced out with a helicopter.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And her partner saved her by pulling a knife and stabbing it. So fight, do whatever you can, fight like hell. It's you with a bear.
Yeah.
The only time, so you do hear, if it's black, how's that go? If it's brown, lay down. If it's black, fight back. If it's white, say goodnight. That's somewhat true. That's sort of true in a defensive attack, and all bears do defensive attacks, but black bears tend to take a swipe out of you and run away. Grizzly bears, when they make a defensive attack, they could kill you with a swipe, right? Their paws are as big as my, So that's the situation where they do suggest. So if you have the wits about you to know it's a brown bear, it's a defensive attack, and if you're aware of all that, you might choose to lay down and play dead, because that might save that second swipe that might kill you. But if it's stalking you, it doesn't matter what color it is, fight.
Right. What do you have to add to that, Peter?
I think what Kevin said is absolutely correct. I'm not a bear expert. I know what I know through personal experience and reading books. And I think the biggest thing that you can do for yourself is to educate yourself on bear behavior. What are most common encounters? What are the 4 types of bear you're most commonly deal with? And how to defend yourself, or how to retreat, how to know the difference between a defensive or a predatory encounter, how to see the difference between a bluff charge and an actual attack, and be somewhat educated. And I think one of the best books, and actually Canada has one of the best bear researchers on the planet, I think. And I got a couple of books from that gentleman, Stephen Herrero, who writes about bear attacks and bear encounters. And there's a lot of valuable information in there. And one of the best books I've ever written is Backcountry Bear Basics. And that is from the Mountaineers book by Dave Smith. So I think if you, every bear, it's like with humans, there are certain common traits that we all have. And so is that with bears, but some have specific individual traits that would differentiate them from the commonalities of everything else. So the more you know, the better you can educate yourself, the better you can be prepared. And in the field, if you have a little bit of education under your belt, where you can distinguish with what kind of bear, what kind of encounter that you're dealing with, the outcome might be a lot more positive than if you have no idea what it is that you're actually dealing with and you just react. That's not always a bad thing, but the more knowledge, the more education you have on bears, on bear behavior, and what to do, what not to do in certain circumstances. I do understand that if you encounter a bear, there's going to be a huge adrenaline dump, and you might get a little bit of brain fog, a little tunnel vision and stuff like that. But the more you know, the more you can train yourself with these inert sprays. And you can put up scenarios like where you deploy your bear spray, with inert bear spray, from how you carry on a portage or with a backpack, the better you're prepared to deal with an actual encounter. But that's how I see things. I think educating yourself with the lecture that is out there and preparing yourself that way, and also physically deploy that bear spray, pull that safety off, get yourself an inert bear spray, And whether you carry it on your belt, on a clip on your backpack, or however you do it, deploy that thing and spray it towards a 3D target, or a tree for that matter, the inert spray, and see how you go about it. And then I think third is that you should be prepared to deal with the outcome of a bear attack on a partner. So educate yourself in how to stop a major bleed, how to deal with big lacerations, how to deal with punctures from in the neck or the back of the skull or something like that, how to deal with massive blood loss from a scalp. Like update your first aid training to, a lot of people may think that that's a little bit overboard, but I know that's maybe 1 or 0.5% that would ever be necessary. But the day that it is necessary, you might well save a life.
Yeah. We did the first aid training show a couple weeks ago. I urgently stress that if you have no first aid training whatsoever, to take some sort of first aid training and try and build yourself up to the wilderness first aid training, so that you learn how to handle and deal with these types of things. I know, Peter, you do wilderness first aid training as well, do you not?
No, I don't do wilderness first aid training. I've been asking to be wilderness first aid trained at a company that I train for, but they don't currently have a market for that training. So I do standard first aid, emergency first aid, CPR, AD, and basic life support. I recently did my wilderness first responder course with MHO Adventures, and that's a really good course. But if I can throw my 5 cents in there, or 10 cents, whatever that is, get yourself trained in how to properly stop bleeding, I think, and get your kit set up to do that. So get trained on tourniquets, get trained on Israeli pressure bandages, get trained on how to keep somebody alive until they can actually pick them up. Because as Kevin said, we did a case study with the MNR. I'm not going to talk about her name, but that was actually a forest, somebody that works for forestry that got attacked. And it took a long time for her to be evac there. They actually got to drop a team in, clear an LZ, and then had the chopper come in and take her out. So that's where you come in with your first aid skills, how to keep somebody alive long enough and you're dealing with major issues for them to actually be picked up by professional rescue teams and en route to a definite care hospital, whatever that is. That's where you come in. And on average, the first aid kits that you mostly buy, they're, my personal opinion, they won't do that. So I'm a big, if I teach first aid, I'm a big believer in you build your own first aid kit, and you build that with in mind the worst case scenarios, where massive blood loss, where use of tourniquets, pressure bandages, wound packing, like all these things, airway management, these things that keep people alive. I think that's really, really important. So I would put I put it on educate yourself, be prepared, and actually like train to deploy bear spray. Get yourself one of these inert cans and train how you carry it. Because having the gear is one thing, knowing what it is capable to do, understanding what it needs to do, and then actually use it to the best of your ability. And then be prepared in a first aid situation where if everything goes wrong, you can work within that first hour and keep somebody alive long enough for the pros to come down, pick them up, and put them in a bird towards definite care. I think that those are 3 things that I would recommend. But everything starts with education. Build yourself a foundation where you understand what it is that you're dealing with in order to better prepare yourself.
Certainly. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Let me ask a question, not to put the thumb on Daniel here at all, but when we watched that video clip, did Daniel handle that right? Out there yelling at the bear, is that something that you want to do, is get out there and sort of deter the bear by, hey, get back, bear, hey, bear, we hear, hey, bear, right? Is that the proper thing?
He's with us. He's with us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, this is true. And that's good. I'm so glad that worked out for you, Daniel.
People always
Yeah.
second guess themselves, and that's natural, and you're supposed to learn. But I have no idea. I'd have to go to the site. I'd have to be there fresh right after it happened, or be with him. But I suspect that bear was habituated, and it wasn't any of his fault at all. I think he just came and saw something hanging in a tree and took a swipe.
Yep. And I think ultimately it's about, looking back at the experience and how I behaved and what I could have done better. But, there's probably 100 things I could have done better. But, when I came away with, what am I going to do in the future is one, I need to react faster. And the idea is to create distance. Anything that I can put together that can create distance is gold. In the case of this experience, we ended up using, it was nighttime, so it was very dark. We ended up using a flashlight to keep it away because it didn't leave completely. It was about 50 feet away, and it was just watching us.
Yeah.
And so we packed up and left, but we had to pack up. So one of us would hold a flashlight at the bear so the bear couldn't really see what its prey was. Not that it was, trying to get us or anything, but it was curious more than anything else. But we tried to create mystery by, taking away its sight, I guess. And then we packed up and we got out of there, and we left some stuff behind, but we went and camped on a little rock seagull crap island. We sat there in our chairs and slept the rest of the night and went back in the morning to get our food and stuff like that. But with the whole idea, the biggest thing for me was, how do I create distance and make sure that I have a buffer? And that's what I'll be focusing on in the future.
Sure. And Daniel, I have to commend you because I know you were out the following weekend again camping. So you didn't fall off the horse and stay off the horse. You got right back on and got back.
I had to. I was a little messed up, so I had to get back out. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I say, I caught wind of it somehow. I don't even know how I caught wind of it. And I think I called you the day or so after you got back, because you and I are friends. You and I have paddled before together, and like I said, we'll probably paddle again in the future. But as soon as I heard that you had that bear encounter, I was very concerned for you, and I wasn't calling to be nosy or nothing about the show or nothing. I was actually concerned for your welfare because I could just imagine that I know in my own circumstance, I'd have probably left I'd have left a streak behind myself, if you know what I mean, right? So I was concerned for you, and I'm just glad everything worked out for the best. Yeah. Well, gentlemen, you know what? I think we've had a great show tonight. I think we've educated or helped to educate many people, and I know I've learned a lot from you, Peter, Kevin, and Daniel. There's many different angles you can look at it, but I think the best thing is to try to be safe out there. And I'm just going to go around the table here once, and I'll start with myself. And we'll work our way like Kevin and Daniel and Peter. Just some final thoughts on a bit of safety there. Let's not get it too long. We're already 15 minutes over, but I'll start by saying, when you're in the backcountry, always be aware of your surroundings. Look for the signs, look for the signals. Always look behind you when you are on a portage or something like that. It's so easy to not look back because you're always looking forward at the beauty. But you never know if you do have a predatory bear sneaking up behind you. I'm not trying to scare anybody, but it's always best to look back every once in a while. Look over your shoulder to see what your surroundings are. And please, please, please keep your campsites clean and do not leave any garbage. That's my message. Kevin?
Clean campsite and bear spray. Carry bear spray, know how to use it.
Yep. Cool. Daniel?
I'm going to reinforce what you just said, but it's a question of studying your surroundings. You get to a campsite and you have a solid look around and make sure that there's no garbage. If there's garbage, there's probably a bear. So pass on that site if you have to. Just be safe. Just look over everything properly and make sure that you've got a good site.
Excellent. And Peter?
I would actually concur there. Like, keep your site clean, but again, it's not always your issue that attracts a bear onto your site. And I would say educate yourself. The more you know, and the more you understand what it is that you're dealing with, it takes a little bit of that fear away, and then you actually manifest a plan in your head. And if you follow through with actual hands-on training, I think that would put you in a better spot than if you have no knowledge at all and you're just, every sound is a bear around your tent, because that takes the joy out of the outdoors, and that's absolutely not necessary.
Certainly. And last but not least, Kevin, where can people find you?
Oh, you can find me on YouTube. My channel is Kevin Outdoors. Facebook, Kevin Outdoors. My book is Backcountry Eats, and that's where you can find me.
Yeah, Kevin's got a lot of great videos on his bear research that he's done. He never claims to be a professional, but he does have a lot of knowledge based on some of the experiments and stuff that he's done, and he's got a lot of great videos on it. So by all means, check that out. Daniel, where can people find you?
You can find me at Daniel Mailhot Outdoors. Used to be Seasons of Serenity, but I found that a little too fancy for me, so I just put it back to kept it simple.
Excellent. How about yourself, Peter? Where can people find you?
I have a website, so Peter Desmet, Wilderness Skills and Outdoor Life, and I'm mostly active on Instagram, so which is the same, Peter Desmet.
Excellent. I've got links to all their socials and stuff in the description below. So by all means, feel free to check that out. Gentlemen, thanks very much for spending your Tuesday evening with us. And we'll have you all on the show again someday, I'm sure. Kevin's a regular now over here, right? So we'll see you guys in a few short moments in the green room.
Right on. Cheers.
Oh, that was awesome. Hope everybody enjoyed tonight's show. Like I say, it's one of them shows where it's a bit educational with the paddling season coming upon us, and all the bears coming out of hibernation now, the winter sleep is over. We want to make sure that we're safe out there. So by all means, please be safe out there. And you know what, if you ever see anybody in distress, or it happens where you might be going and somebody may be having an issue, maybe you can help educate them or whatever. Try to clean up them campsites, make it so that bears are not as much of a problem. Just wanted to remind everybody next week that we are doing a show on trip planning, maps, and how to find crownlands. So with the paddling season upon us, we want to make sure we're knowing how to plan our trips and find the right places to go and the proper resources to use. So be sure to tune on in for that. I'd like to thank all of you for tuning in tonight. It was a great show, and I hope everybody has a fantastic week. In the meantime, we'll see you next week, and keep the adventures alive.